Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. We'll run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as in the north and west it looks likely to be seeing weather fronts pushing in with quite a lot of precipitation around and generally average sort of temperatures. However, further southwards and eastwards, especially into the East Anglia and London and sort of southeast England area, it could be turning really quite warm with a last burst of heat for the end of August. Later this week, though, as eventually that more unsettled weather drifts south and eastwards that is lingering over the north and the west at the moment, and then over the next few days, it could start to bring some thunderstorms perhaps through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We'll then, after that, have a look at the GFS, GM, ECMWF, and the Ensembles, look at the medium to long range, as we are now heading into meteorological autumn, and see what is happening for the start of September. As we have alluded to over the last few videos, it is still really quite uncertain. We have some runs, including the GFS today, really bring some warmth back in September, but others, like the ECMWF and certain ensemble members, are trying to keep things cooler, and the reason for that is because we've got high pressure blocking, but it's where the positioning of that blocking is going to sort of station and just sit there. Wherever it does that will decide the sort of air mass we see. As I said, if it's further northwards and westwards, northerly or northeasterly flow, it'd be chillier but pretty dry. If it sits further eastwards and southwards, dragging up southerly winds, it could be quite warm, maybe even hot into September. And of course, with low pressure running in off the Atlantic, we would bring in the risk of thunderstorms. So it is something we do need to keep an eye on. Yes, we have still got a lot of uncertainty around. Again, it's going to take a good few more days to decipher completely, but at this stage there are still many scenarios on the cards, and we'll go through the models, have a look at what's the most likely scenario today. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So to start on the live radar, you can see we do have some unsettled weather pushing in at the moment. You've got low pressure centred out in the Atlantic, and it is pushing in weather fronts. Now, most of this rain is patchy and moderate to light, but we have got heavier pulse of rain moving through parts of Liverpool into the northwest, into parts of northern England, will be spreading into northeast England over the course of this afternoon. It's quite heavy, potentially even thundery within some of this heavier precipitation, but elsewhere along the weather front it's quite light and patchy, just bringing thicker cloud and on and off light to moderate precipitation, and it is spreading eastwards. Now, eventually, these low pressure systems are just going to halt to our west, bringing still weather fronts and unsettled weather further westwards and northwards, but it would start to drag up south to southwesterly winds for the south and the east of the United Kingdom. And what will that do? Bring up some late summer warm temperatures. Could be peaking at around 30 degrees for a few days this coming week. So yeah, real quite warm conditions perhaps for some. Now, if I do put on the 2 metre temperatures, it's around 1 p.m. as I'm recording this, you can already see that east-west divide ahead of that weather fronts out across the east, and even into parts of northeast England towards Yorkshire, through the East Midlands into East Anglia, even perhaps into the London area as well. It is still quite warm today, temperatures into the low to mid-20s, and it will rise further over the next few days, as of course with that weather front pushing in, even though the precipitation isn't moving further eastwards yet, it is bringing a lot of cloud in, which will prohibit those temperatures a little bit. So yeah, this orange and red colours will be getting more widespread over the coming days, peaking perhaps Wednesday or Thursday with temperatures, as I said, in excess of 25 degrees widely, perhaps even as high as 30 degrees for some in East Anglia. So, if we do go over to the UKV and have a look at what the precipitation and the temperature is doing over the next 5 days. Now, if we run out to this as I'm recording, it's around 1 p.m, you can see that heavier precipitation in the north and the west, pushing eastwards with patchier precipitation around it and just some thicker cloud as well. It will move eastwards over the course of this afternoon into the evening, just thinning out and becoming quite small and sort of disintegrating, really. Just a few showers left behind it. As we head through Tuesday, you can see the south and the east are pretty dry, but further westwards, heavier precipitation. And it's because we have a weather front parked across parts of England and Wales with hot air to the east, cooler, more unsettled air to the north and the west. We'll see that with the air masses in a second. That precipitation continues to move northwards and westwards. Northwards and eastwards. We could still see some precipitation in the south and east, but where we escape that, it will be quite warm, if not quite hot. And we see similar conditions through Wednesday across the north and the west. Heavy precipitation moving on this southwest and northeast alignment. And to the south and east of that, in the sunshine, it could be very hot, as I said, with real pocket of warm air there through Wednesday, and similarly through Thursday. Perhaps even quite dry, more widespread warmth there as the precipitation does sort of move away for a time there. But as we head through Thursday, or through early hours of Thursday, we see a bit of thunderstorms potentially in the south and the east through Wednesday evening and Thursday, and perhaps through Friday as well, some showers and storms in the southeast, as we do see more unsettled air push that hotter air away, and eventually by the end of the run, we're all into the cooler air mass. We can see that by the upper air temperatures. You can see around this afternoon, those upper air temperatures are starting to rise quite widely, around 9, 10, 11 degrees at 850 HPA. And that weather front moving in at the moment is a warm front, so it's actually got warmer air behind it. The only reason why ahead of it is warmer because it hasn't got cloud and precipitation, which is prohibiting those temperatures at the moment. But as we head to Tuesday, you can see in the north and the west, cooler air starting to push back in. But in the south, low teens at 850 HPA, giving temperatures perhaps in the mid-20s. As we head towards Wednesday afternoon, you can see in the far southeast 13, 14 degrees at 850 HPA, in the north and the west 3 or 4 degrees, and similarly on Thursday, hanging on to about 13, 14 degrees at 850 HPA in the south and east, much cooler further northwards and westwards, and eventually it will get swept away by the end of the week with much cooler air pushing in. So if we do have a look at those 2 metre temperatures over the next 5 days, you can see today those temperatures are around 3 p.m, around low 20s where we escape the precipitation, maybe 23 degrees in East Anglia, but where that precipitation lingers mid to high teens. As we head towards tomorrow, you see those temperatures rising more widely, perhaps 20 to 23 degrees, maybe 24, 25, 26 degrees, and perhaps even 27 degrees through London, Essex, and East Anglia. Very, very warm there. And similarly into Wednesday, perhaps rising even higher. You can see by 3 p.m. on Wednesday, widely 25 plus degrees across a lot of England. And yeah, rising to around 28, 29 or 30 degrees across East Midlands, South East England, Essex, East Anglia. Really, really quite warm and even hot. So last blast of heat coming this working week, and into Thursday, still could be quite warm, not quite as hot as we do start to have some thunderstorms breaking it down, but still low to mid 20s there. And by Friday, similarly, could still see low to mid 20s, but not quite as hot. So a warm, hot spell coming this week, as we saw in yesterday's video. And yeah, it does look like some areas could be reaching 30 degrees. Perhaps on Wednesday, before slowly cooling down. Still staying above average through Thursday and Friday, but it is cooling down a little bit. And as I said in yesterday's video, this could be our last blast of heat of the summer, as we are sort of heading inevitably into autumn, where these temperatures are going to be much, much more difficult to attain. Every week we go on, it gets even more difficult as the air masses to our south start to cool down or gradually cool down, and we get less daylight in the day. So we don't get as much surface heating from the sun as well. So if we go through the GFS and see what's happening over the next couple of weeks, you can see low pressure running in off the Atlantic at the moment. You can see the air masses we've got on at the moment, and you see a warm air mass pushes into the south and the east. Later this week, 15-degree isotherm potentially pushing in there ahead of that low pressure system. You can see a big northwest-southeast divide through Wednesday. Eventually, though, the low pressure pushes through, eventually sweeping all that warm air away, and we go back into sort of an average sort of air mass by next weekend. Low pressure does try and push in, but eventually we see high pressure take over. You can see very few isobars across the UK, and that's mean light winds. But the wind direction is coming in from a north or northeasterly direction, so it will be cooler next week. You look at the upper air temperatures with the temperature deviation, it's starting to cool down, especially the north and the east, spreading through a lot of areas, average, slightly below average upper air temperatures, for eventually cutting off that cooler flow with high pressure toppling, and eventually low pressure just sinks southwards, sort of a diving low. High pressure to our north. What do? We start to build up a southerly flow, and that's because the block is in position to our east instead of further northwards. This is what I said at the start of the video. all depends where this big high pressure block sits. If it's positioned further northwards and westwards, it would be a cooler northeasterly flow, but here it's sitting to our east, pulling up a hot southerly flow. Very warm for this time of year into the start of September. You can see perhaps 8 to 10 degrees above average. Very, very warm. Again, these air masses wouldn't be too incredible in the middle of summer, but as we head into early autumn, these air masses are going to get even more difficult to attain. So it could be really warm there. Temperatures would be getting into the high 20s, perhaps without even maybe 30 degrees for some. And eventually that hot air will get swept away by the low pressure system, which will inevitably bring some thunderstorms with it. But you can see considerable differences across the North Pole. A lot more greens and blues starting to appear. That's as the colder air and the cooler autumnal air masses start to develop. Because you run it back right to the start of the run, you can see so much less green there, and that is because, as I said, we are getting to that tipping point now where those cooler air masses are really rapidly growing in the north, and the hot air masses in the south are starting to diminish quite quickly as well. But we still have warmth potential, probably all the way into October, but traditional sort of warmth, we only really have maybe 4 weeks left of anything getting towards that sort of low to mid 20s point. Come mid to late September, our sort of average temperature is going to be back into those mid teens, starting to get on the chilly side, especially compared to this summer so far. Now, if we go over to the GEM, see how that does compare over the next 10 days. Again, low pressure pushing in at the moment. Again, eventually high pressure does build back in towards the weekend, but a bit of a northeasterly flow, slightly chillier air mass pushing in from the east. Again, nothing crazy cold, but perhaps below 5 degrees at 850 HPA, so below average. Eventually the high pressure does topple back in with slightly warmer air masses. So this scenario would be quite dry. It would be temperatures around average, maybe chillier than average at times, maybe warmer than average at times as well. We see a bit more sunshine, but not really deviating from average too much, maybe a couple degrees either way. So widely temperatures will be in the high teens, low 20s, which isn't too bad for the end of August and start of September. Considering we can start to see stormy conditions, absolute deluges, and really chilly northerly winds, this isn't too bad of a scenario from the GEM today. Now, if we go to the ECMWF, which, as I said, goes really quite chilly today at day 10, you can see low pressure moving in at the moment, and that eventually does push away to our north. High pressure builds back in, drier, but starts to turn chillier with a northeasterly wind. And as I said, that high pressure block stays to our north, and it pulls in quite a chilly northeasterly wind. Again, those air masses don't look particularly cold, but look at the temperature deviation. We are in those blues. We're a good 4 to 6 degrees below average, so it is quite chilly. Again, doesn't look that crazy on the 850 HPA temperature charts, but for this time of year, for the end of August, that is quite a chilly air mass. Temperatures would be widely in the mid to high teens. We can probably even have a look at the surface temperatures, and you can see for the middle of the day, you can see struggling in the mid to high teens, maybe touching on 20 degrees, and overnight those temperatures would be falling most likely down towards the low to mid single digits across rural areas and maybe low teens in the south. And you can see through Thursday, through the last day of August, struggling at 20 degrees again. So yeah, chillier conditions from the ECMWF. It's impossible to get anything really cold, but it would be quite a lot chilly than what we have at the moment, or what we've had recently at least. If you go over to the ECMWF Ensembles, the anomaly charts, and see what that's showing over the next couple of weeks. If we go up to day 7 and see how that does compare, 168 hours, you can see pretty much all the runs now have that high pressure centred over Iceland, extending further north. It's a big block producing northeasterly winds. So it's a pretty bang on now. We're going to see sort of a northeasterly flow. Again, it's difficult to pinpoint the exact air mass because slight orientation shifts can change that air mass quite drastically, but most of the runs will probably be a chillier northeasterly flow, which won't be cold, but it won't be massively warm either. If we do move beyond that until day 10, that's when we start to see a bit of uncertainty. 17, we've got high pressure centre to our north, still a northeasterly or easterly flow. Could be warm, could be chilly, again, depending on the orientation. 14, of high pressure extended over the top of us. That's very similar to the GEM run, where it would be average sort of conditions, maybe slightly cooler, maybe slightly warmer than average, but nothing too crazy. So that northeasterly wind isn't particularly strong, generally under the centre of the high. Another 12 have high pressure centred to our north, big blocking once again a northeasterly flow. And another 8 have high pressure just centred over us and to our north, probably just a generally easterly flow, which still can be relatively warm for this time of year. If we do run out to 300 hours, again, we still have quite a few different scenarios. 10, I've got high pressure block to our north, trapping a low pressure system over the top of us. That would be potentially quite warm with a bit of a southerly flow, but also quite unsettled and thundery. Another 10 of high pressure extended towards Scandinavia. Scandinavian high, easterly flow. That would be bitterly cold in a few months' time. But right now would probably be pretty warm actually, with the near continent still being relatively decent. Another 9 of high pressure extended over the top of us. That wouldn't be too bad. Maybe slightly chilly with a colder air mass trapped underneath it. But again, we'll have to see exactly the details for that. Another 9 of high pressure to our north. That would be quite chilly with a northeasterly flow. Another 7 of high pressure sinking further southwards. Would be extending over the top of us. So it might not be too bad, but low pressure trying to push in from the north, so it could turn things unsettled in Scotland. Another 6, including control run, that would be quite chilly. That would be well below average with a direct northerly wind. North Atlantic Ridge, heading towards Iceland and Greenland. That would be a proper little northerly blast there of chilly air. Nothing cold, of course, but upper air temperatures could be dropping down as low as 0 degrees at 850 HPA, which would give surface conditions widely in the low to mid-teens, maybe high teens for some in the south, where we avoid the coolest air masses. But because it's a northerly flow, it will feel quite chilly, originating most likely from the Arctic. And if we run right to the end of this ECMWF anomaly run, you can see again 10 low pressure centre over top of us. That will be very unsettled, probably quite stormy and unsettled with thunderstorms within that. Another 10 high pressure over top of them to the east, easterly flow could be quite warm. Another 9 centred over the top of us. That still could be quite warm with the sun strength still all right at the start of September, so it could generate some warmth there, low 20s perhaps. Another 9 have high pressure to our north, low pressure to our south and our east. That would be very unsettled, especially in the south. That would be reducing a lot of deluges, but could be quite warm. But with a lot of deluges, probably even though the upper air temperatures might be warm towards the surface, probably wouldn't be. Another 7 have very unsettled conditions, but rich over Greenland and northeast Canada, so unsettled, but the wind direction generally coming from a north or northwesterly, so we'd be on the cool side of the jet stream, and yeah, wouldn't be particularly nice. Another 6 of high pressure extended over top of us, could be chilly across the eastern side of the country with a northeasterly flow, but nothing too crazy. So again, consistent signal from the ECMWF ensembles of big blocking patterns, but it all depends on the exact positioning and orientation and where it does trap any low pressure systems to decide how unsettled it is and how cool it is as well, or whether it could even be quite warm. Now, if you finish by having a look at the ensembles, if we start on the GFS ensembles, look at the line charts, you can see very warm over the next 5 days, even though the upper air temperatures are not too exceptional considering what we've had so far this summer. For late August, it is a good 5 degrees above average. Then we see those temperatures starting to drop more towards average, but the GFS ensembles very much reluctant to turn us below average. Very interesting considering what we've seen from the operational runs today and the ECMWF ensembles, which have much more of a northeasterly flow. A lot more of these are staying on the warmer side, especially in the south. Longer term, we generally are trending towards average. Still got some cooler runs, but still got some very warm runs, similar to the GFS operational. So that would produce some late summer warmth, temperatures into the mid to high 20s again, maybe even touching on 30 degrees. But the majority of the runs are around or slightly above, maybe slightly below average. So no consistent signal again from the GFS today, just a lot of scatter with quite a bit of precipitation around, but nothing distinct and nothing really consistent apart from in around 3 or 4 days' time when we have those thunderstorms potentially in the southeast. So we'll have to see how it plays out. The GFS ensemble is really not giving us too much insight in the in the mid to longer range. If we do look at the sea level pressure, you can see though generally it is higher pressure. That is the one consistency we can take from this. If we do have a look at the ECMWF ensembles and have a look at the entry of the HPA temperatures, much more consistent with turning things average to maybe below average for the end of August and start of September with that northeasterly flow. So ECMWF showing us definitely more of a tighter spread, more towards average or below average. Still warm in the next 5 days, but trending towards average with quite a few precipitation spikes, but again, nothing too consistent. Again, we're not expecting that because it all depends on the orientation of the high pressure systems. Longer term, some warmer runs, some cooler runs, so still a lot of uncertainty with that. So all scenarios still on the cards because we still haven't deciphered exact positioning of that higher pressure. It does look likely towards the end of August and start of September, even though the GFS ensembles are not going for it. It does look likely we will see at least cooler air masses trying to push in. Whether they'll reach the whole of the country or just linger across the north and across the far east is difficult to say. But it definitely feels like we're going to have a go at pulling a bit of north or northeasterly wind. So it could turn chilly for the last couple of days of August and start of September. Beyond beyond that, there is a lot of uncertainty, and I can't say for certain, just as we saw those ensemble charts. All depends on the orientation of the block. But for the time being, the next 5 days is looking, for many in England, it is looking really quite warm and dry and potentially even quite hot. But precipitation does look likely to return perhaps through Wednesday and Thursday with some thunderstorms. But as we saw with the UKV, a lot of it is showery, convective of nature, so we're not really going to have a clue exactly on it, perhaps for 24 or 48 hours out, because it is going to be chopping and changing quite a bit. That thunderstorm risk does increase through Wednesday night and Thursday. We'll have a look at it in detail tomorrow, but we'll have to keep an eye if the Met Office issue any warnings, and we'll have a look at other models as well if that risk is or stays high. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you enjoy the warmth and the heat if you are in England over the next few days. It could be our last real blast for perhaps 6 months or so. So make sure you do go out and enjoy it if you are a warm weather lover. If you are looking for something a little bit cooler and a bit more just mixed, it's looking likely we'll see something like that towards the last couple of days of August and the start of September. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.